it's Miss Danes here, and I hope you're all feeling excited about a week of doing some digital learning. This PowerPoint is going to take you through one of our week 1 tasks, which is going to be to prepare an individual presentation on a hero of yours. This is something that you would have been working on if you were in school this week. So we're going to let you work on it a little bit at home and see what you come up with. And it's actually quite a good task to do that with, because it's one that involves you being a bit more independent and doing a bit of research. Now, if we look here, we can see that the following tasks are designed to help you plan and deliver a successful individual presentation, or a solo talk as we sometimes call it. You're going to need to follow the steps carefully, and at the end you are going to talk about one of your heroes. So let's start by thinking what a hero is. Most dictionaries define a hero as someone who is known for their courage, achievements, or abilities. You probably have people that you look up to as heroes because they inspire you in some way. So when we say inspire, we mean perhaps somebody who has qualities that we admire, qualities that we would like to have ourselves, somebody that we might like to try and be like in some way. So here's your first task. You can complete this in your class notebook on Microsoft Teams. So you have to answer the questions below. Before you answer them, you might want to try discussing them with a friend or a member of your family to get some ideas. So question 1 is, what makes a person a hero? And what qualities does a hero have? Now, there aren't strict right or wrong answers to this question. We want to know what your opinions are, but try and be nice and detailed when giving your answers, give plenty of reasons, and remember to write in sentences. Question 2 asks, what different kinds of heroes are there? For example, you could have sporting heroes, political heroes, and so on. See if you can make a list of as many different types of heroes as you can. These might be people that you look up to for different types of reasons. And then, for part 3, try to list some names of people who you consider to be heroes. And next to their names, try to list specific qualities these people have that make them inspiring or heroic. So, for example, you might put down a name like somebody like Marcus Rashford, and for qualities you might say that he's a very talented footballer, but also that he cares a lot about other people. You might be thinking about his campaign to make sure that school children would get fed during the lockdown. The next part of this task is going to be to think about what hero you are going to write about. So hopefully your answers to the questions in the previous task will have helped you with this. Here is a table that gives you some ideas about some different types of heroes that you might pick. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about some of the people in this table and why they might be good to pick. Hopefully that will give you some ideas. You don't have to pick anyone from this table, but you can if you're a bit stuck. So first of all, we've got sporting heroes. So we have Mo Farah. I'm sure you've heard of him. He is the Olympic gold medalist for both the 5,000 and the 10,000 metres, and he's won both twice. You might also have heard of Simone Biles. She is one of the most successful gymnasts of all time. She's American and she has won over 30 Olympic and World Championship medals. I would really recommend looking up some of her routines on YouTube. They're incredibly impressive. For political heroes, you might want to look at somebody like Barack Obama, who very famously was the first ever African American president of the United States of America. Then there's also somebody like Emily Davidson. Now you might not have heard of her because she's from further in the past, but she was actually a suffragette. Now a suffragette is someone who campaigned for women's right to vote before women had the right to vote. And that was what Emily Davidson did. So you might be interested to find out a little bit more about that if you don't already. If you're an artistic kind of person and you would like to focus on an artistic hero, you might think about either Frida Kahlo or Picasso. These are both very famous painters. Picasso was also a sculptor. Frida Kahlo is Mexican and Picasso is Spanish, and you'll be able to see lots of examples of their paintings and works if you have a little look on the internet, and that might be something you might enjoy doing. Historic heroes could include Rosa Parks. So Rosa Parks was an African-American woman. She was an activist. She was part of the civil rights movement, and she was most famous for taking part in the Montgomery bus boycott in the United States. That's a really interesting topic if you're wanting to find out more about it. I'm sure you've probably heard of William Wallace. He's famous for being a Scottish freedom fighter. He was one of the leaders of the First Scottish War of Independence. And again, there's lots to find out about him. If you're thinking about doing an acting hero, you might want to think about somebody like Emma Watson. She played Hermione in the Harry Potter films and Belle in the recent film of Beauty and the Beast. But she's also a bit of an activist herself. She was recently made the UN Goodwill Ambassador for Women. So she also tries to use her fame to do good things as well. And then we have somebody like Tom Hanks. He's maybe most famous for being the voice of Woody in the Toy Story films. But he's been in many films over a long career. And he's also won 2 Academy Awards, that's 2 Oscars for acting. Finally, if you're a bit of an amateur scientist or you find those topics interesting, you might want to think about a scientific hero. Marie Curie is somebody you might have heard of because she's got a charity named after her. She was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize for Science, and she's the only woman to have this day to have won it more than once. Then you could also think about somebody like Albert Einstein, who I'm sure you have heard of, who is famous for developing the theory of relativity. And even to this day, people quite often use his name just to mean a very intelligent person. Although interestingly, he was somebody who didn't always do well in exams in school, which I think is something interesting about him. So, there's lots of options there. You don't have to pick anyone from that list, but that should give you lots of ideas. When you're choosing, try to choose somebody that you are genuinely interested in, because you're going to be doing a talk about them. So it has to be somebody that really you're going to enjoy finding information out about, but also try and pick somebody that you will be able to find information on. So maybe not somebody who's very obscure or that not many people have heard of. Have a think and carefully make your choice. Now that you've chosen your hero, you're going to have to think about researching and organising your presentation. You may already know some information about your hero, but it's important that you can give as much detail as possible when you're talking about them. Therefore, you should carry out your own research from books, magazines, newspapers, the internet, and so on. Now, unfortunately, we're in lockdown at the moment, so it's not that easy to go out and use the school library or go out and buy a magazine and things like that. So you'll probably find that you do a fair amount of your research online. Make sure that when you're doing your research, you try and pick reliable sources. When we say reliable, what we mean is something you can trust. So websites that are official, that are connected to an organisation that you know well, for example, something like the BBC. Wikipedia can sometimes be reliable and sometimes not. It can be better to use it as a starting point. You'll often also find that Wikipedia articles can be very long and sometimes have too much information. But what you can always do is have a little look. At the bottom of any Wikipedia article, there should be a list of sources for the information, and sometimes you can follow that and get a better link to better sources. If you're not sure, you can always contact your teacher and ask for a bit of advice. As you're finding out the information, you're going to need to think about how you're going to organise your presentation. Now, on this slide, we have a suggestion of different headings, and these are headings that represent information you might want to find out about your hero. You could also decide to use these headings as the different sections of your talk. This will fit most heroes that you might look up. So you might want to find out information about the person's birth and early life, information about the person's early career, information about the person's personal life. If it's relevant or you find it interesting, it might not be relevant or interesting. You might want to just focus on the things that they're famous for. Information about the person's most significant achievements. So their most significant achievement would be the thing perhaps that they are most famous for, or the most important thing that they did. So for somebody like Mo Farah, that might be winning his Olympic gold medals. If you are picking somebody like Barack Obama, you might want to think about, for example, when he was able to pass healthcare in the United States, which meant that more people had access to healthcare than before they did. So that will partly be your opinion as well. What do you think this person has done that was the most important? And then finally, your own opinions. Why do you find this person inspiring? What made you choose them? And that's very important. Let's have a look at how some different pupils have gathered information using these headings, because you're going to have to think about how you're going to record your information. So here's an example. Let's imagine there was a pupil called Laura. Laura wanted to talk about Michelle Williams. We've got a picture of her here. She was a fan of her films, and she knew that Michelle Williams was a very talented actress. She also knew that she had a child called Matilda, and she wanted to find out more about the films Michelle had starred in. Laura made a list of what she found out when she did her research. Let's have a little look at the list. So you can see here that Laura has decided to organise her information by using a series of bullet points. So at the beginning it says she was born on the 9th of September 1980. She was close to her father and he encouraged her love of reading. She grew up in Montana. And we continue right through to the end when Laura has written, I find her amazing because she is an amazing actress. Pardon me, I find her inspiring because she is an amazing actress. And I admire how good she is in lots of different films. I also think the way she keeps her life private is impressive. She taught me about the importance of hard work and dedication. So this is one way of organising your information as you find it. What's good about using bullet points is that you can record quite a lot of information in a bit less time. If you try to write everything in full sentences and paragraphs, you'll find that it's an awful lot of writing to get the same information down. So using a note format like this can be a really good way of organising your information. Let's have a look at another example though. So here's another example. We have a pupil called Rosie. Rosie wanted to talk about Malala Yousafzai. And again, we've got a picture here of Malala. She knew that Malala was shot in the head by the Taliban for something to do with education, but she didn't know a lot more than that. Rosie made a mind map with the information she found out. So here is Rosie's mind map. She's put Malala in the middle, and then all around that she has recorded different pieces of information that she found out. So if we start at the top left, it says that she was born in Pakistan on the 12th of July 1997. If we move round to the right, it says that she lives in England, that she wrote a blog for the BBC when she was 11 or 12, that the Taliban said no more school for girls in 2009. And if we continue round, we can see that Rosie has recorded lots of different information in this mind map, or spider diagram we sometimes call them. What can be quite good about this is that you might find different pieces of information in an order that isn't the order you're necessarily going to talk about in your talk. And this is quite a good way of arranging it if you haven't put the information in order yet. So this is another option for recording your information. Finally, we're going to look at how Paul approached the task. So Paul wanted to talk about Barack Obama. Paul knew that he had been the first black president of the USA and that he was married to Michelle Obama. He thought that he was quite a popular president, but he wasn't certain about that. Paul decided to organise his information under headings. Let's take a look. So we can see here that Paul has organised his information under 5 different headings. And these headings are actually based on the ones that I suggested to you earlier in this presentation. So we have birth and early life, early career, personal life, main achievements, and then my opinions. So for example, under birth and early life, we have born in Hawaii on the 4th of August 1961, spent some years living in Indonesia as a child, moved back to Hawaii in 1971 to live with his grandparents. We can see that there are lots of other points made under all the other headings as well. What's quite good about this system is that Paul has got all the information. It's very organised, so it's easy to find the different sections of his talk. It's in a good order so that when he comes to delivering his talk and thinking about how he's going to perform that, then he already knows the order of his information. So that's a really good way of keeping your thoughts organised. But you have 3 different options there, and you can choose whichever one of those that you think will be the best. You can choose to record this in your class notebook, or if you're going down the road of a mind map and you find it a bit easier on a piece of paper, you can always take a picture and submit it to your teacher that way. It's important that you find the structure that suits you best and it helps you to organise the information that you find out about your hero. You need to know this information before you move on to the next stage of the task. Now, next week we'll be going on to thinking about how do we turn this information into a presentation. So to make sure that you're prepared for that, you're going to need to make sure that you have found out a lot of information, that you've got it organised, that you've submitted it to your teacher so that they can check it, and that you'll be ready to go next week. I hope this presentation has been helpful. Get in touch if it hasn't. Good luck and hopefully see you all soon.